So I first off want to apologize for my voice. I'm suffering from a terrible cold, but we're going to get through this. Today I am going to discuss embalming in the Civil War. So embalming in the Civil War is incredibly relevant to our embalming today. It's where a lot of the fundamentals from embalming come from. And a lot of things have changed, of course, but a lot of the basics are derivative of the techniques that were developed during the Civil War. So without the Civil War, we wouldn't have made the immense advancements in embalming that we have now. This change in the industry is going to continue to evolve, and we're going to learn better ways to embalm. We're going to learn better ways to reconstruct and to transport bodies, but a vast majority of the fundamentals have stayed the same since 1961. So just a little bit about the Civil War. The Civil War lasted from 1861 to 1864. The war separated northern states from the southern states, and President Lincoln was the head honcho of everything. So the death toll in the Civil War was immense. 620,000 soldiers died during the Civil War, and just to put that into perspective, over the wars that we have engaged in since the Civil War, 650,000 have died in the multitude of wars that our country has been involved in, and this was on our home soil. So we, all of a sudden, as a country, had a huge influx in decedents, and we had to figure out a way to transport them, to sterilize them, because 65,000 of them alone died from typhoid fever, which was unbelievably contagious, and 50,000 civilian deaths occurred. So we're talking over 700,000 deaths in the span of 3 years. The top embalming surgeons at the time were Thomas Holmes, who is considered to be the father of modern embalming. Brown and Alexander were also embalming surgeons, and that was a funeral home, and Henry P. Cattell worked for that embalming company, and he actually is the one who embalmed Abraham Lincoln's 11-year-old son when he passed away. Dr. Sampson and George DeGuide, they were both Southern embalmers, and they worked in the oldest funeral home that is still in operation today in the South. And then Dr. Richard Burr and Dr. Bunnell, they had a little bit of a squabble going on. One of the guys' tents ended up getting burned down. And then Dr. C.B. Chamberlain and Dr. B. Lyford were also really prolific embalmers at the time. And then I also have a video here to show you that just kind of covers what it was like to be on the battlefield after all of the decedents had been left there, and why we as a country had to figure out something to do with such a heavy influx of bodies all of a sudden.
The war means a soldier is 5 times more likely to die than a civilian. Where families used to grieve for the dead at home, now men die on the battlefield. It forces a fundamental shift in the rituals surrounding death. Nat Bowditch dies on a battlefield in Virginia. Yet his family in Boston can still say goodbye to their son, killed 500 miles away. Even though it has taken a week for his body to travel from the battlefield, his father describes how it is free of any signs of decomposition.
Though the marks of closely contested battle were still upon the face, the features were placid, as if he was sleeping.
That's because of the new technique known as embalming. Chemicals like arsenic and zinc chloride are injected into the corpse to halt the natural process of decay. The business of death the preservation of bodies turns undertakers into overnight millionaires. One undertaker boasts,
I would be glad to prepare private soldiers. They were worth a $5 bill apiece. But Lord bless you, a colonel pays $100, and a brigadier general, $200.
if you've got the money, all sorts of new techniques are available. Airtight coffins and embalming are most popular. And for the wealthiest, even elaborate refrigerated coffins packed with ice.
So that was just a glimpse at what embalming was at the time, and it gives you one person's perspective on what the prices were. I think it's a very interesting video. So the Civil War changed the funeral business in an incredible way. Civil War embalming set the tone and traditions of what the funeral service industry is now. Through the demand of embalming, trade schools opened up, which paved way for accredited funeral service education through universities and community colleges. Any embalming procedures that had been performed before the Civil War began was done by people who had medical experience. And so this now opened up a new category of medical trade that was just embalming. And that is the school that I am obviously currently enrolled in now. So embalming costs then versus now. To get these prices to be comparable to today's prices, I used an inflation calculator. So for reference, an enlisted soldier and an officer in 1851, while it was technically $50 and $25, and then in 64 became $80 and $30, the prices today would be comparable at $731 and $877 for an enlisted soldier. And now the price of embalming, I put $800, but the median in the country is anywhere from $700 all the way up to $1,000. And then an officer, we no longer charge based on military rank and how much money a family has to spend. That can be spent on merchandise, but the embalming itself is standardized throughout funeral homes. And it would have been $1,462 or $2,339. And that is over twice the cost of what embalming would be today in a typical funeral home. So embalming tools then and now, many of the tools used by Thomas Holmes are similar to the tools that modern embalmers use today, but there are some variations in technique implementation, but many of the fundamentals he developed in much of his research and experimentation, such as embalming through a major artery, are still in place today. And then here is a quick bibliography at the bottom of each slide that has information. I went ahead and threw a citation in there.